Mr. Wetherington, my name is Paul Lipton, and I am a member of the Standing Committee of the Florida Bar's Professionalism Committee. This is part of a historic video series program of interviewing the judges and lawyers in our community that have made a difference in the practice of law and in life in this part of the country. And you have been chosen as one of those people that have made a clear difference to the way we live here. So good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Paul.
Can you please first give us an oral history of your background?
Well, I was born in Adel, Georgia, but I've been living in Miami all my life. I went to Miami Edison Senior High. I went to University of Miami undergraduate. I went to University of Illinois Graduate School in Political Science, and I went to Duke Law School. And I was married when I was in graduate school to my wife Leona, who also went to Miami Edison. And we have a daughter, Chris. After I graduated from Duke, I came back to Miami, and I worked for a large personal injury firm, Perry Nichols firm, before I went to the county attorney's office. Was assistant county attorney. I also went away as a visiting assistant professor at Duke University for a year. But I came back, and subsequently I practiced trial and appellate law. Also taught at the University of Miami part-time. I then became a member of the full faculty at the University of Miami. But I was appointed to the circuit court at the end of 1974 by Governor Askew. I served on the circuit court in Miami until January of 1996. I also served for 10 years as chief judge of the court, and I'm now working with a former judge of our court who was my associate chief judge, Herb Klein, and a classmate of mine at Duke who was on our 3rd District Court of Appeal, Phil Hubbard. And we work together now, doing a certain amount of law work, and we do arbitration, mediation, special master work, and I also have continued my teaching and other professional responsibilities. I'm presently chair of the court's master plan committee, and I also am a member of a number of other organizations, the American Law Institute, the American Bar Foundation, and the National Association of Metropolitan Courts. They basically, in overview, that's my background.
Thank you. What are your, if you could explain the core beliefs that have permitted you to maneuver through the different parts of your life? Do you have any particular core beliefs, Mr. Wetherington?
Well, I have a number of core beliefs. Insofar as work is concerned, I think that the most important value insofar as work is concerned is to always strive for excellence in your work. And that's more of an internal inner value than it is an external value. It's how you feel about the work that you're doing. Circumstances can put you in good situations and bad situations. You can have good times and bad times, hardships, stress. If you're dependent upon what other people think about you, if that's your way of evaluating yourself, you're going to be on a roller coaster. The thing that you can, that will help maintain you, in my opinion, is the excellence of your work. And you know when you're doing your very best, you know when you're doing excellent work. It shouldn't be the money, it shouldn't be the external things, because they're not dependable. But the excellence of your work is always dependable. And I think, and many times along the way, that's one of the thoughts that has helped me a great deal. Also, both as a lawyer and as a judge, we're serving the administration of justice, which I hold to be one of the most important things that we can do. And many times if I've gone in there, I may have said to myself, and did say to myself, if I had major judicial decisions to make or dealing with difficult problems, I've many times said to myself that I may not be much, but I'm all they got at this time in this position. So I've got to do the very best that I can and put my responsibilities, my obligations above anything personal. You have to have a commitment to ideals to sustain you, in my opinion.
Do these core beliefs follow you through into your personal life also, or are there additional layered core beliefs?
Well, I think that there's a couple other things that are very, very important. And this is a commentary to some extent on what's happened in modern society. There's a danger in trying to control people. A lot of our jobs and a lot of our values in this society are based around controlling people. The problem with controlling people is that you always become estranged, you always become alienated from anyone you control. And the act of control is the act of alienation. That's why a lot of people that end up with a lot of power end up very much alone. And so one of the things that I tried to do is to exercise as little control as I could exercise in dealing with the situations that I was in. Because this power and this control is the thing that's ultimately alienating. And it's difficult because many of the positions we're in require us to exercise a certain amount of authority. Very important how we exercise that authority. Power has to be handled like fire, very, very, very delicately, because it can consume you. And therefore, once again, if you're looking at people, you should look at people as much as you can as subjects and not objects. And it's not always possible. We're not able to do it 100%. But I think it's a tremendously important thing. I really learned this in detail at a seminar I had at Yale many years ago, when it dealt with the alienation of modern man. And I really began to understand this point, which I think is a tremendously important point.
Let me, in following up on that, you were judge and chief judge for a substantial period of time. Are there any messages you would like to share with the judges of this state as far as what would help them in seeing their role in the judicial system?
Well, as a very good friend of mine, former Judge George Orr, said one time, is a lovely person. A judge holds in his or her hands the power to affect our people in their most important values, in their money, their property, their family relationships, their liberty, and their very lives in some instances. This is a tremendous power to put in people's hands. And with that power comes this tremendous obligation to deal with these most precious values in the very best way that we can. We've always got to remember in a judicial position that it's not us personally that is important. It's the responsibilities that we have to other people. And it is essential that the judge is independent. The judge cannot be intimidated by any groups or by what people want at any particular time, organizations. In fact, one of the great dangers is to the independence of the judiciary. And I think that to be independent and to play that role as it should be played, you've got to be guided by your internal values. You've got to be guided by your commitment to the administration of justice. And I think it's that constant inner focus that's required. You can't be distracted by what you think people think, for example, because first of all, they're not necessarily going to tell you how they really think about you anyway. If you're a judge or you hold any position of authority or power, it's unreliable. So you really have to, I think, be motivated by the internal values in what you do on the court. And you have to have this genuine and very humble commitment to the values that you're serving. You must be absolutely, in yourself, totally humble, even though the world may see you in certain instances as exercising a great deal of power and authority. That's the way people will tend to see you, but you have always got to stay terribly humble inside about what you're doing, in my opinion, if you're going to do the job the right way.
Thank you. Moving away from core beliefs for a moment, is there a particular philosophy of life, if it's different than the core beliefs, that have helped you through your life?
Well, I don't have any kind of a systematic philosophy that I could tell you. I have a number of things that I believe in. I believe in the importance of the individual. I believe in spirituality. I think you need to believe in something transcendent in this world. If you just believe in yourself, or you believe in money, power, and shiny things, it's not going to end up very well. I think that we have to be really genuinely concerned with other people. I think in a very spiritual way. I like the great line of Cervantes when he said that the past is history, the future is mystery, the present is a gift from God. And sometimes what was sometimes referred to in the Middle Ages as humble consciousness, Hegel's term. You focus upon each day as a gift. Each day is a gift from God, and you labor humbly in the vineyard, so to speak. You appreciate everything you have. You don't focus on what you don't have. That type of thought and inspirations helped me on many, many occasions in hard times. One of the problems is wanting everything, and then if you don't have everything, you're unhappy because you don't have everything. That's a philosophy of that's going to inevitably lead you to discontent. It's part of the Faustian culture that we live in, the constant striving and the constant seeking for more and more. But in the end, it's, as Faust found out, it's empty. It leads nowhere. So I think that it may very well be that in the times that we live in now, that a consciousness such as humble consciousness may be the most important thing. It's been referred to in many. Tillich, the theologian, talked about the fact that we live in sort of a dark ages, you know, even at this time, and that our attitude should be one of watchful waiting, of signs of better times to come, so to speak, in terms of spiritual and transcendent values. If you're caught up with all the externalities and you're dependent on what everybody else thinks about you, and you're dependent upon money and power and all those things, it's not going to sustain you, in my opinion. You've got to be sustained by something of a transcendent value. That's the only thing that will, that's always there. Because that which is inside you is always there. That which is outside is going to be a constantly changing thing.
Thank you. Moving from some of your deep personal thoughts to getting your thoughts about the profession that you've worked in all these years, do you see a difference between the words professionalism and ethics? Or do they mean different things to you, or are they the same?
Well, they could be different things. I mean, they're just a matter of terms and the question how you want to define them. And of course, ethics differs from morality. Ethics are the external rules that we require people to adhere to, some of which embody moral principles and some of which don't. Some of our ethic rules, for example, embody moral principles, and some are rules that are necessary, such as principles of the adversary system, for our system to function, and they're not necessarily moral rules. Professionalism is probably a broader term, and probably embodies all of the activities that a proper professional should undertake in addition to adhering to the model rules of professional conduct. There are other things that may not be directly included in the model rules, but we would consider to be professional in the way you deal with people. But has there been a change? Is that what you were?
Yeah, what I was going to ask you is, have you seen a shift at all from when you first started practicing law and first becoming a judge to where you are now, and good or bad, and your thoughts about that?
Well, there's been a tremendous shift because some time ago, the way law firms were organized, they were organized, if it was a law firm, there'd be a number of partners, and they would sort of mutually make business decisions. A lot of people were sole practitioners, but they really were not organized and operated as corporations are. The main focus, I think, was, although there was always a necessity to make money, I think the main focus may have been more on the activity of practicing law. What's happened is that obviously, and a lot of changes have occurred in our economy. Law firms now, many big law firms are becoming more organized and run more like corporations. And there is, for lots of reasons, a lot more commercial pressures on lawyers now than existed before. So lawyers end up having to be business people in many instances, far more than they did in earlier points in time. Now, there may be some advantages to this. It may be that in certain ways that the law firms may be more efficient, and they may actually produce a more efficient product because of this, because there are gains that can be achieved. But along with the gains, there are some real dangers, and that is that the commercial aspect can become dominant. The commercial needs can become dominant when the overhead is huge and the business side is huge. These pressures can create some negative impacts on people. The question is, where is your main focus in what you're doing? Is your main focus in serving the client and in the joy of what you're doing, the activity of what you're doing? Or to what extent do you have to be concerned with the money-making aspect of it? The money-making aspect of it can dominate And if it does dominate it, in my opinion, it can have some very bad effects upon people. So clearly that's the major change that's occurred. It has some good aspects to it. It has a lot of aspects to it that are potentially very dangerous, in my opinion, for lawyers.
Do you see any solution to the dangers that you see? Can you make any recommendations as to that, or do you think we're just going down a path of change, and that's the path we're going?
It looks at this time based upon the way events are developing. I mean, the D.C. has adopted the rule that allows lawyers to be partners with accountants and others, and this proposition is also now in front of the American Bar Association, and looks like that eventually it might be accepted. There's a lot of organizing pressures, not just with lawyers, but I think with business in general, or with corporations in general, that look like the trend of this continuing commercialization is going to be there. I don't think we're going to be able to turn that back. But the question is what I said before. The question is how people are going to be on the inside. That's where I would put my greatest focus. It's what they're going to be on the inside, what they believe in, and how they're going to conduct themselves on the inside.
Well, then let me ask you this. Do you believe that there should be some change or addition to the law school curriculum to help young people adjust to the world that's out there and help them with what you believe are certain philosophies they need to survive out there?
Well, I would say that the law schools have added a lot more of the clinical component in recent years, and I think the ethics course is extremely important. I think there needs to be greater emphasis upon this particular area, and the reason why is because the pressures on the other side are so vast and so strong. But in the last analysis, what is it that changes a consciousness? What is it that brings about a consciousness at any point in history? Why do people believe things that motivate them? And I would be looking in this instance at focusing upon the inner values in this. The values of individual independence, the values of real idealistic commitment to the people that we serve, to the values of justice. I think in that respect, people can have values that can counteract some of these potentially negative impacts of all this commercialization. Ideas have shown out through history that they are the most powerful things. Ideas, to some extent, spark major events like the French Revolution. With people, in the last analysis, ideas are enormously important. The question is, which ideals are going to prevail in this particular instance? We could simply say we can't do anything about it, we've got to have a job and we've got to do these things. We've got to go along. Or people can say they're not going to go along with anything they think is improper. They can draw a line. That becomes a question of what people believe and their willingness to act upon their beliefs. This is the area that seems to me that we need to focus on. This is the area of idealism, the inner values. This is the answer, in my opinion, to the extent that an answer exists. This can counteract any of the negatives that can come about by the commercialization that I see.
If you had an opportunity, which you do here, in this video to give some suggestions or thoughts to young lawyers just starting out. What would you like to share with them?
I would say that you've got to, first of all, be an independent person. And part of that means not to put yourself into a situation economically or any other way that will prevent you, if necessary, at the drop of a hat, from resigning or walking away from any situation or any job where somebody is asking you to do something that you know is wrong, or that you know that in which you know is going to make you feel very bad about yourself. It's going to make you compromise your integrity. And that means that I would not want to commit myself financially or otherwise above my head, so that if that situation comes, I can't walk away from any bad situation or any bad job. I think that's absolutely fundamental and essential. And I think that this sense of independence is essential for young lawyers. But part of that is, I think, also attached to the idea that they've got to believe in something. Why are they doing what they're doing? What are the values that underlie being a lawyer? Now, these are very precious values. We give lawyers this tremendous power to affect our citizens' lives. This is a tremendous, wonderful thing it is to be a lawyer. It truly is. And if you have the belief in the importance of what it is you're doing and the value to yourself and to society on one hand, and understand that you cannot compromise that you must be independent at all times, and that you must, in my opinion, always strive for excellence in your work. These are the things I think that are the most sustaining. When people get in, they sometimes go out and they get into situations financially where they have to meet these large personal expenses. This creates problems. I've seen this create a lot of problems. It creates a lot of stress. And frequently, when people are under stress, it brings about negative behavior. Stress is one of the things that's the biggest problem in our society and in the profession. Stress will lead to alcoholism. It'll lead to drug abuse. It'll lead to mental illness, family breakup. It has many negative aspects on it. So one of the things I think that people have to do in the profession is try to find ways to limit and avoid the stress they can. And one of the best ways, frankly, is to have a good set of inner values. Because when you know what you ought to do, and you know you're going to do it, and you're very clear about that, that in and of itself is going to eliminate a great deal of stress, to have a core, a center to yourself.
If you had a magic wand, and you were able to change anything in the legal profession right now that you could, or generally that affects all of us, if you could, if you were given that power, what would you do?
Well, that's, as we said, a very global question.
Yes, it is.
If I had that kind of power, what would I do? I think what I would do would be to change people in the sense that, number one, they care about each other first. And if we all looked after each other, we wouldn't be alone, would we? And it would be a totally different world. And that's the one thing, and the greatest thing that we could do. And that would probably take care of most of the problems in the world, if we could do that one thing. If we could change the way we feel about each other and treat each other, that would be the greatest thing in the world. Because it isn't money. It isn't money. we're very fortunate. We have enough wealth in the world. It's the way we think about each other, the way we treat each other.
If you had some final thoughts that you would like to share with the judges and the lawyers who will be watching this video, and they will be, what are some final thoughts you would like to share with us?
I still believe that being a lawyer is one of the greatest things in the world, and one of the most important things. I think if you're fortunate enough to be a member of the court, it's an inestimable privilege, because in both of these roles we have the opportunity to help administer justice. And justice is one of the most important things in the world. It's what helps us to have a quality of life that we want to have. To be a part of that is a magnificent thing. And although there may be difficulties, there may be problems that we have to surmount, what a wonderful opportunity it is for those of us that have the privilege to serve as lawyers and judges. So notwithstanding all the problems, I have always felt enormously privileged to be a lawyer, and enormously privileged to have served as a judge. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I don't think there's anything. There's other professions that I think are wonderful too. I mean, many, the medical profession and many other professions I think are wonderful. I don't think any of them are more important than our profession. And I always remain, I still see so many wonderful, wonderful lawyers. There's nothing better in the world, in my opinion, than a great lawyer. Nothing better than to work against one or work with one. I've done both, and it's the greatest privilege in the world, the greatest feeling in the world if your colleagues look and they say, like I worked construction a couple summers, and they had a phrase in construction work, they say, well, he does good work. And for somebody to say, for your colleagues to say you do good work is an enormously rewarding thing. I think it's a great profession. And I think basically in the long run that the idealism of the profession is going to win out. I really believe in that. I mean, we're going to have to go through, the problems of commercialism and all that kind of stuff, like everybody goes through. But the question is, are we going to keep the idealism? Is that going to emerge? Well, our ethics rules are predicated on this soaring idealism, to use a phrase from Walter Starkey's translation of Don Quixote. And I believe in the long run that it's going to prevail. And I see it every day. I mean, I see lawyers out there all the time. What are they doing? I mean, they may be getting very little money, but they're in there fighting for somebody all the time. There are people that can't get their Social Security. They have to have a lawyer. What the lawyer does makes their whole life, saves their whole life. I mean, we save lives. We protect people in every aspect of their life. What a sacred thing that this really is that we do. So we get bloodied every now and then, and because the world is difficult. But in the last analysis, it's a wonderful thing. And I think in the end that we have probably the highest ethical standards of any profession that I'm aware of. And I think in the end that the goodness, the idealism will be the thing that wins out. Notwithstanding, there's going to be a real battle, because you got to fight reality, and you got to fight the commercial pressures can cause problems and stress in life and all like that. But think of all the wonderful lawyers and judges we have in this country right now. And how many instances and examples where we see people going out and they're giving everything they got to represent their clients. And I've always been very proud to be a lawyer, very honored to have served the court. So I remain, notwithstanding all the talk about everybody gobbling up the lawyers, you know, and all this stuff. And, I believe in the long run that we're going to continue to be a great profession. And I think it's going to be because of the ideals that we adhere to. So I'm optimistic.
Well, Mr. Wetherington, it's been a joy spending this time with you. I thank you very much. I know that the judges and the lawyers and the law students that are going to watch this video are going to enjoy it as much as I have spending this time with you, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul.